In the heart of a city that never truly sleeps, two people vanished like a pair of cigarettes but swept into a gutter. No note, no ransom, only silence, and a file that would grow cold for decades. Chicago Cold Case. The Missing Couple, 1970s. Ordinary lives, ordinary night. Daniel Moreno was a postal worker known for his laugh and the way he always tipped his hat. Claire Hayes taught third grade and volunteered at a neighborhood clinic. They were married 5 years, lived in a third-floor walk-up on Humboldt Park Avenue, and spent Friday nights at the Blue Lantern Club, a dim little jazz bar with a neon martini glass. Hands lighting a cigarette, a Polaroid of the couple smiling, a front stoop lamp flickering. Close-up, a framed wedding photo, slightly crooked. The last anyone saw them together was a Saturday night in late November, 1976. They left the Blue Lantern laughing at some private joke, arm in arm. Their neighbors said they seemed tired but happy. They never came home. The morning after. The next morning, Daniel's bicycle lay abandoned outside the club. Claire's coat hung on its hook. The couple's 1967 Chevy was found in a supermarket parking lot 4 blocks away. Engine cold. Radio playing a static hiss. The car was locked from the outside. Insert. Cut to a slow pan across the Chevy's interior. A lipstick stain on a napkin. A single Polaroid on the dashboard. Daniel and Claire at the Blue Lantern, smiling. There were no signs of a struggle. No forced entry. No fingerprints that led anywhere. The police logged it as a missing persons case and began to ask questions that would spiral into a maze of secrets. The first lead that wobbled. A witness said they saw the couple arguing with a man in a brown overcoat outside the supermarket at 11:23 p.m. Another reported a woman sobbing near the L tracks. A maintenance worker found a matchbook with a bar stamp not from the Blue Lantern. Each lead pointed in a different direction. Matchbook spin. Index cards pinned to a corkboard. Timeline graphics with pins and red string. Then a lead that burst like a cheap balloon. A postcard addressed to Claire, postmarked 3 towns over. The message was short. 2 words. Keep quiet. No return address. No fingerprints. The suspects stack up. VO low. Building tension in a city of neighborhoods. Everyone knew everyone's business. The suspects grew like shadows at dusk. The ex-boyfriend. A man with a temper and an alibi that was thin but not impossible. He'd argued with Claire months before. The landlord. He'd recently evicted a tenant and had a rumor-filled past. People in the building whispered he knew too much about who came and went. The bartender. At the Blue Lantern, he'd made offhand comments about a dangerous loan Claire once co-signed for a friend. The whisper of organized crime. In 1970s Chicago, whispers mattered. Someone suggested that Daniel had accidentally sorted mail that exposed a small corruption scheme in a local precinct. Each person had motive, and each seemed to have an alibi worth doubting. Investigators chased them all, and the case grew messy with conflicting memories and neighborhoods that closed ranks. A detective who wouldn't let go. Detective Harold Eames took the case personally. He was mid-career with a jaw like a shelf and a file drawer full of losses. He staked out the Blue Lantern, interviewed the same witnesses until the lines in their stories frayed, and pressed leads until they snapped. A late-night office, a corkboard lit by a green-shaded lamp. Harold pins a new photo, the Polaroid from the car. He circles a face in the background, a shadowy figure at a nearby table. The figure remained unidentified. The photograph was grainy, but Harold could feel the edges of an answer under his fingertips. The twist. A confession that opens more doors. 2 years after they disappeared, a man named Luis Romero was arrested for an unrelated burglary. In a late-night talk with Harold, he confessed, not to the disappearances, but to knowing who had taken the couple. He named a person, a low-level fixer known around the Blue Lantern as Ray. He said Ray had debts. He claimed Ray had taken jobs that went bad. Police logbook, a mismatched pair of work gloves, the name Ray typed on a ledger. Harold tracked Ray to a peeling brick building near the river. The man was there, alive, but with a new name and no memory of that night. Ray's wife said he'd been at work until late. Without hard proof, Harold had a confession that led to a dead end. and an accusation that withered like fall leaves. The freeze, technology, and time. In the 1970s, fingerprints could get you a conviction, and witness testimony ruled juries. DNA was decades away. The case suffered from the era's limits. Erased phone logs, lost evidence, and witnesses who moved or died. Cue montage. Faded newspaper clippings, a department store ledger yellowing, a county clerk shelving folders. The file went cold. Harold carried it home anyway. He'd stare at the Polaroids before bed as if sleep could pry answers from silver halide. A new generation, a new lead. 3 decades later, the case returned to life. A young podcaster unearthed the file, talked to surviving witnesses, and found one small thing the police paper trail had missed. A hotel receipt tucked into Claire's purse that no one had checked properly. It showed a payment to a travel agency, but the agency had records burned in a fire years earlier. The smoke had eaten paper, not truth. Close-up of a hotel receipt, a floppy disk metaphor for lost records, an old travel poster. The podcaster's episodes drew attention. Viewers sent tips. An amateur sleuth noticed a face in an old newspaper photograph of a 1976 neighborhood festival. A face that matched the shadowy figure in Daniel's Polaroid. Mail poured into the cold case unit. The break that wasn't. The new lead pointed toward a small-time contractor named Thomas Hale, who had worked at the supermarket that night. His fingerprints matched prints found on a receipt in Daniel's car. But Thomas had died in 1988. His son said his father had never spoken about anything like that and produced an alibi corroborated by coworkers. Then, a twist. A neighbor came forward with a scrap of film found in a tin. It contained short home movie footage from the night Daniel and Claire went missing. The footage showed the couple leaving the Blue Lantern, and following them, a car with its headlights dimmed. Shaky Super 8 footage playing. Grain, jitter, a car in the distance. The footage confirmed a tale, but not why. The car's plates were missing. The film trembled like a pulse, then clicked to black. Motives multiply, truth phrase. With each new piece, theories splintered. Were they targeted because Daniel had processed a postal package that contained stolen money? Had Claire stumbled onto an illicit abortion ring? Did a jealous heart, a crooked cop, or a contractor's debt converge into a single violent night? The more paths investigators walked, the more paths forked into dead ends. People whispered that the city itself was an accomplice. Indifferent, noisy, and too loud to notice a couple slipping into the dark. The personal costs. Friends aged into ash and the Blue Lantern closed its doors. Claire's mother received occasional postcards with no postmark and a single sentence. "Forgive me." Daniel's brother spent years chasing tips until his teeth rattled in his head. Detective Harold retired with the case file still on his desk. Empty crib, a rusting set of keys, a man with his head in his hands under a street lamp. The people who waited never stopped waiting. Missing birthdays turned to missing decades. When the files reopened, their hands had fewer fingerprints and more ache. The final twist, 2 possibilities. Years later, an elderly man in a nursing home asked to see Harold. His breath smelled of peppermint and regret. He said 2 sentences and then asked for a cigarette. "I helped them run. I thought they'd be kept quiet, not gone." The man's name was never put on a warrant. His story was fractured by time and dementia. Was he a confession or the fantasies of an old man? The truth slid through the investigator's fingers once more. Alternative ending presented as a choice, both left ambiguous for the viewer. The cover-up evidence points to a small group of men, a fixer, a contractor, and an off-duty cop, who, trying to silence a threat, beat and dumped the couple beyond the river. A local tipster swore they hauled bodies to an abandoned pier, but no body was ever found. No conviction was made. The city's record remained blotched. The Escape new analysis suggests Claire and Daniel staged their disappearance to flee mounting threats. The Polaroid and the car were part of a plan gone wrong. The postcard to Claire's mother might have been a guilt-laced attempt to explain. If they ran, they never called again, and maybe they died under other names, anonymous and faceless. Which is worse, that they were silenced, or that they chose to vanish and leave their loved ones to a life of unknowns? Both answers wound open new questions. The file that keeps talking. The case file sleeps in an evidence room. Old film can be digitally enhanced. A hair can be tested for DNA. A neighbor who was a child the night they vanished is now a woman who remembers hearing a laugh that sounded like Claire's and a car that wasn't from the neighborhood. The truth is a brittle thing. It breaks under the weight of time, and yet it also survives in the small, stubborn facts. A hotel receipt, a Polaroid, a matchbook. For descendants and detectives, the search never ends. Closing shot. A slow tilt-up from a rusted evidence locker to the night sky above Chicago. Lights blinking like unanswered messages. Daniel Moreno and Claire Hayes remain missing. Not dead, not found. Only questions. If you know something, if you remember a face in a Polaroid or a car with its lights down, tell someone. Speak into the silence. End card. If you want more cold case stories, subscribe. For the families of the missing, you are not forgotten.